Well, we might as well get started with your
Sure,
presentation.
sure.
Do you want me to
So just
introduce you, or do you want to self-introduce?
you can introduce me. I'm thrilled to see what you say about me.
So this is Snowden. Okay, go ahead. um, Snowden is actually teaching for us this summer. We're very lucky to have her uh, helping out. She'll be teaching the audiovisual preservation digitization course. Snowden and I met either through AMIA, the moving image
I
archivist
think
group,
we met at Aerie.
or area. I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
was, yeah, the Archival Education and Research Institute. Um, but so Snowden graduated from UCLA, then went to Texas,
hmm
and then went back to UCLA and was, well, I'm just going to say, pretty much running the moving image archiving program.
Yeah, I think my title was manager. I was managing it, so I
Okay.
think it's fair to say that.
Well, your title kept changing
I know. Tell me about
every
it.
other day.
A
Um,
discussion for another day.
and right now, she is an independent consultant
hmm
as well as a board member of AMIA. Um, so, welcome. Oh, wrong way, mirror.
Thank you. Yes.
Welcome,
I'm
Snowden.
also on the continuing education task force for EMEA, and so we're all of us, along with Ed, all of us are involved in thinking about what the continuing education needs of our professional community are, whether they are people coming into the field from other career paths, emerging archivists and professionals who are coming right out of graduate degree programs, or people who are mid-career and senior professionals who are looking to skill up or move around. And so we've been talking a lot about just how do we create a community of support for our colleagues, whether they're new to the field and just starting out, or more senior. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you all, because I have been working on kind of a quick session on just job hunting in this time and space and place. And so you're a test audience, and I would love to hear your questions, whether you're looking for a job, or you're somebody who has a job and maybe wants a different job, or is thinking about changing a career path, or you're not looking for a job because you're maybe a first-year student, but you know it's on the horizon and you are terrified because who knows what's happening in the world. So I have some slides, and I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen. Please feel free to hop in at any time with questions. I'm happy to be interrupted. I've scheduled this out for about 30 minutes. If you need to hop off, please feel free to do so. And if you have questions you want to put into the chat pane to me personally, I will. Oh, hi, Blythe. I will be more than happy to answer those without attribution. Comments and suggestions are welcome, or additions are welcome as well. So without further ado, I'm going to just jump right in and share my screen here. So, so this this is the working title. It is. Let's be real. It is always horrible to be hunting for a job. So the particular circumstances here, let's maintain a sense of proportion and realize that job hunting, it's job hunting that's the terrible part, and the during the pandemic part is just kind of the cherry on top of the dog poop sundae of job hunting. It's terrible to be job hunting right now, but it's always terrible for some reason or another. It's never really a perfect time to be looking for a job. You might be starting a family or thinking about starting a family. You might be actually pregnant. You might be job hunting with a disability or looking for work in another place altogether. You might have other kinds of responsibilities that that are a source of anxiety and stress. You might not have wanted to be job hunting at all. You might have been let go. Some people who are job hunting right now during the recession, they have a bunch of cherries on top of that dog poop Sunday. But there's always going to be something that makes it extra hard. And so I want to frame this discussion as, yes, it's hard, but the tips and tricks and techniques that we use to get through a job hunt in a time that's hard in this particular way are things that are going to be really useful and helpful and contribute to our resiliency when searching for, applying for, interviewing for, and securing and starting in a new job at any point in our careers. So these are the same things as always: being organized, casting a wide net, putting your best foot forward, and having a reality check from time to time, because nobody is ever in as big a hurry to hire you as you are to get hired by them, unless, of course, they have decided to hire you, in which case they want you to start tomorrow. So I am going to just quickly go through some of my top tips for each of those classical techniques of job hunting and being successful with that stressful process. And then at the end, I'm going to go into why it's really different now and what you might do specifically differently job hunting during a quarantine shutdown or at a time of real uncertainty for your workplace. So being organized is the number one. I'm going to circle back to this repeatedly because it connects to a lot of different elements. I have been keeping what I call my job book for a really long time. I am not always on the job market, but I am always my Glengarry Glen Ross ABC, always be comparing. Comparing what is out there with what you're doing now, the titles that you have or are looking to have, and what that job description looks like now, what you have been doing, what qualifications and skills you have versus what is marketable right now or most in demand. I have been keeping just a sort of reference manual for myself, just anything that comes along that I think sounds interesting. I kind of read job postings for sport, in part because I'm always looking out for my friends as well, and for students who might be looking, but also because I want to know how things are being described, what kinds of workplaces are out there. I look for how people phrase things. You know, nobody owns words and phrases. So if I find that a job posting has a particularly nice way of describing something, I might crib that for use in a cover letter. I don't want to repeat their words back to them verbatim, of course, so I am careful about what I borrow from where. But if somebody puts something really well, I want to be able to use that. Job descriptions and job postings are worth reading even when you're not on the job market, because they can be so valuable for so many things, and having them in a place, capturing them and keeping them in a folder that I can refer back to means that I'll always have them as a resource going forward, even if the posting is taken down before I can get back to it. I also like to maintain, if I'm actively starting a job hunt, I have a list of resources, the 5 places that I check either weekly or every couple of days. I add to that list as I find new resources or as sites come and go. Depending on the field that you're in, there might be kind of a go-to site and then a few other places. There might be 1 or 2 companies that you are keeping an eye on and waiting for things to pop up, and you want to make sure that you don't forget to check their site for new postings maybe every week or every month. I like to also keep a list of keywords. That's something that I mine job postings for. Not just characteristics of who they're looking for or skills, but titles that are changing, or categories of job duties, things that I know I can do and things that they're looking for. And then I kind of permute those. And so I say, well, I'm going to go to, monster.com or Glassdoor, and I'm going to search for these titles, and I'm going to search for these keywords. And when I've gone through that list, I know that my search for the day is done, and I've found what I can find, and then I can go on to the next thing instead of obsessively checking over and over again. And so I will also make a note of who sends postings to me. One thing I've learned is that often people know me and what I can do better than I know myself. And I will, if I get a job posting forwarded to me by more than one person, I will apply for it. I will take my friends' word for it that they think something's a good fit for me. And I also follow up with folks that refer a job to me, just to let them know, hey, thanks for that. I wanted to let you know I applied, really appreciate it. I'll keep you posted. This is part of building social capital, and it's a really important part of the process. Whether or not it actually leads to something, letting folks know that you're interested, that you acted on their advice, and that you are, you appreciate them looking out for you is a really nice thing to do. It's just the classy thing. And I also would really recommend, if you want to get crazy organized, and obviously you do because you're going to library school. So I would recommend maybe spreadsheeting this mofo, creating an Airtable database for prospect tracking. This works for you in two different ways. Number one, it helps keep you organized. It gives you a place where you can plop in things like your cover letters or your draft resumes that you're tailoring for that particular job, and know that that's the version that you're using. You can keep the text from job postings or links as well. And you can summarize all the essential information, and you can start being really data-driven about your search. You can, if you track where you found postings, as well as the titles and salary ranges, you can start getting really granular, and be extracting things about the job market for you or people like you from that data as well. It's also a skill builder, so you can say, hey, I'm such a rock star. I even make an Airtable database for my job search. So it's a great way to learn a new skill and keep track of your little bits and pieces as you go. I also recommend casting a wide net, and that means looking outside of where you might normally look or might think to look. And that's why other people sending you job postings is a really great thing. They might catch something that you don't. You can be using their network as well as your own. So applying for everything, I'm a big fan of this. Maybe not every single job that's posted at a company, whether you're qualified or not, but even if you think you are remotely qualified, if you have maybe 40% of what they are looking for, don't talk yourself out of applying to something. Other things I hear people doing, we're all really, really good at talking ourselves out of things. In fact, we might spend more time talking ourselves out of applying for a job than we do talking ourselves into the jobs we eventually get. So practice talking yourself into things. Focus on what makes you a good a good candidate, not what disqualifies you or the one thing that they are asking for that you don't have. Most job postings are what my friend Lynn calls letters to Santa Claus. There is a long list of things that they want. They'll be happy with a bicycle. The key is to have the exact things that they are looking for, and to be the person that they want. Nobody is expecting to get every single thing. If that is you, great. If you're that unicorn, great. But what I've often said to folks is that if you have everything that they're listing in the qualifications, then you're probably overqualified. Every employer expects you to grow and learn things in the course of your job. If you come in thinking you know everything you need to know already, chances are you're going to make mistakes. So go in thinking that your ability and need to learn new things is one of your selling points, not one of your shortcomings. And for those who don't know, I just saw Ed made the great point that Airtable for those who haven't used it, it's a little bit like Excel on steroids. It is a really, really easy web-based platform for easy building of a relational databases. So you can start it as a flat file, but you can very easily build it out to connect tables of information. They have a lot of great templates. I'm a huge fan. I use them for a lot of things that I do, and I'd be happy to do another session on Airtable at some point. But that's perhaps another thing for another day. But it's airtable.com, and tell them I sent you. I don't get any kickbacks, but I do love them and use their product. So other reasons to apply for everything, I have heard people, especially students and people who are thinking about what they're going to do when they leave a graduate program, making decisions based on about what to apply for based on, well, I'm not sure if I want to do this for the rest of my life. Guess what? You're not going to. Nothing lasts forever. Every single job I've had that lasted for more than 6 months was a completely different job by the time I left it than it was when I started. People change, your duties and responsibilities change, your degree of comfort with what you're doing changes, technology changes. There are so many things in motion around you that even if your title is exactly the same and your day-to-day schedule is basically the same and you're doing the same things, you're going to be doing it in different ways throughout the course of a long and happy career. So think of this as something that you're doing for now. If it feels like something that you could do for now, then go ahead and apply and be prepared for the people and the places that you're applying to surprise you. You never really know what a job is like when you're looking at it on paper. You're only going to partially get a sense of what it's like when you're talking to the people that are going to be working with you and when you are walking around the building where you're going to be working, or getting a virtual tour, as the case may be. And people can really surprise you. I've lost count of the number of students over the years who have applied feeling really meh about a job and just been blown away during the interview with the people that they met and with what they heard and how the job was presented to them by the people that they'd actually be working most closely with. So be prepared for that possibility. And also be prepared for the possibility that the dream job that you went to school for or thought you would be doing when you started this process may not actually be the dream job you think it is once you get on the inside. It might be something that you're thrilled to get, but you find out that your boss is a nightmare, the people there are crazy, the family-friendly environment that they talked up during the interview process is not so family-friendly after all. Maybe it's a wealthy family-friendly where it's like, oh, well, just tell the nanny you're gonna be staying late tonight. I hear a lot about that. And so be prepared for something to be different than you expect in both positive and negative directions, and let that be your guide so that you apply for anything you even think you might want to do. And let's see, where's my little, obviously presenting yourself well has always been the thing to do. Putting your best foot forward is important for you as well as for the people that you are interviewing with. I'm going to start with my last lesson first and skip ahead a slide. Don't expect, especially now, don't expect that the face people show you when you are interviewing with them is going to be different for you as an employee than it is for you as a candidate. If they're not respectful of your time, if they're not respectful of your humanity during the interview process, when they're supposed to be courting you and inviting you, they are not going to be any better when you are there on a daily basis and they are paying you to be there. That goes double right now. This is one of the times when it's actually pretty great to be interviewing, because you're going to get to see how people are in a crisis. That's something that many people who are interviewing for jobs are not going to get the chance to see. You're going to get to see people during business as usual. So I want to keep a positive spin on this. It's still a pile of poo, but one of the cherries here is that you're going to get to see some things that you wouldn't otherwise get to see. You're going to get to see people under pressure, and you're going to get to see how a company reacts and keeps moving and growing. So with that in mind, you should be framing yourself in a positive way as well. That means focusing on what you do have and not what you don't. I cannot stress this strongly enough. The #1 edit that I make to people's cover letters is to strike out an entire half of a sentence that starts with, although I don't have any experience with XYZ platform, I did use this other platform at another job, which is similar. That's all you have to say. I have used a similar platform to blah, blah, blah at another job. You don't have to qualify it. You don't have to foreground what you have with what you don't have. Just tell them what you have. That is enough to connect the dots, to say, hey, you're asking for this particular software application for prospect management in a development department. I've used Razor's Edge. So that tells them, I know what you're asking for. I've used something similar. I can do that. If you don't have an exact one-to-one match with a platform, a skill, or something else, find parallels. If you have experience in food service or retail and you are going into a public-facing position at a public library or a university library, you've got a service experience that will be so much better than anybody who's been sitting at a library desk without the credential. If you've been waiting tables or working the returns desk at a department store, you have dealt with difficult customers of a variety and severity that most people working in library world won't get or haven't had lengthy experience with. So find those parallels. Again, focus on what you do have. Having somebody else focus on what you do have is really important too, whether that's a quick proofread by somebody who doesn't even understand what you do, like your mom or your aunt who works in human resources. Having somebody not familiar with our terminology can actually help catch the typos that we might otherwise not catch ourselves. They can give you a sense of how it reads overall, particularly to a non-specialist, which a human resources person of a large organization might be. They can give you a sense of whether your fonts are too tiny or you don't have enough white space. Most HR professionals are over 40 and they're going to be looking at a tall stack of resumes every day. If you make it easy for them to see what you've got going on, they will be happier people. They will receive your qualifications more generously than if it's like all crammed into tiny type with like tiny, narrow margins and you're just trying to say everything. If you make it easy for them to see your best characteristics, that will work well for you. And sometimes that's something that's very difficult to see yourself. Peer reviewing is a great favor to trade. If you are eagle-eyed typo spotter #1, that is something that you can help other folks with. If somebody else is the wordsmith extraordinaire in your group or a great graphic designer, trade those favors within your group and make use of the folks that you know and the skills that they have. It's a great way, again, to build social capital. The interview. This is the hardest thing. It's the place that people stress out more than any place else. And this is another place where I think that interviewing for jobs in this particular moment is actually maybe a little bit better, dare I say it, a little bit less stressful, a little bit less fraught than it might otherwise be. Here's why. You have a lot more time to prepare. Your preparations can be a lot less visible. I have Post-it notes all over my screen edge here, things that I want to remember to say. You don't know that. I'm just talking off the cuff here. I've got copies of different pieces of paper and notes and everything. So my preparations aren't necessarily visible, but you are getting the benefit from them. If you need to take notes, it's sometimes easier for people to do that on a keyboard, which is right there. And the time that you might need to take to respond in a Zoom environment where there isn't true defense can give you time to reflect as well. So you can hide that little hesitation in waiting for people to finish speaking. And speaking of which, I'm gonna pause here and say, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to pipe up. I'm going to give a little break and take a sip. Okay, I'm going to move right along then. Following up and saying thank you is really easy as well, because you already have everybody's email addresses, and so it's really quick and easy to just send that thank you note right off. I always recommend sending a thank you note, even if it's a quick one, just to say I'm still interested. I would love to. I would love to hear more. I can't wait for the next steps in our conversation. And let's see, here we go. There's a couple questions in the chat here. Hang on. Oh yeah, and yeah, the thank you notes I've heard from lots and lots of people over the years. I've talked to over 100 colleagues in the course of doing meetings like this with students at UCLA, and everybody says that it is small things that make a difference, and saying thank you, following up, even if you really feel like you flubbed it during the interview, you have a do-over in the thank you note. There's a time to say, hey, I realized I kept thinking about that great question you asked, and I realized there were some things I wanted to add. You don't want to send like a whole disquisition, but you can get a few extra licks in the thank you note. So think of that as your bonus round as well. Let's see. All right. Another reason that I really encourage people to track their job prospects with a spreadsheet is because it can be a check on reality for you, because time is weird and it expands and contracts when you are waiting for somebody to call you back. It feels like forever, but you can look at your spreadsheet or your personal job prospects database, and you can realize like, oh, I sent that job application out on Thursday. It is Monday. Chances are they haven't even looked at it yet, because the job closing deadline isn't until this Friday. So I'm not going to hear from them. I can move on and fret about other things. Likewise, you may just never get a call back. That is far more frequently the rule than the exception nowadays. You may not even get an acknowledgement of receipt of your application. It's terrible, but that's the way it is. When I was dating, I set what I called a self-esteem deadline, and if somebody hadn't called me back in 3 days, they just weren't that into me. And I could stop making excuses for why they hadn't called, and I could just keep on walking and look for the next one. If they do pop up, if somebody ghosts you and they pop back up on the radar later, great. But you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking, well, maybe it'll happen. I'm gonna not apply for anything else until I hear from them. Just keep on at it and give yourself permission to let things go. It can be really liberating. And likewise, make sure that people are respecting your time within the possibilities for them. Especially right now, the estimates you get from folks about when and on what schedule things are going to be happening are going to be pretty elastic. But this is a chance for you to judge their communication. Are they following up with you? They said it was 2 weeks. It's been 4. Have they been in touch? Are they around? The way in which people are good about or immaculate with their word at this time is, again, a real indicator of how much respect you're going to be treated with as an employee, not just as a candidate. So, getting down to what's different and what you should be doing differently right now, from what I'm seeing, the uncertainty is the worst part of all of this. It's an even more uncertain time. Job hunting is always uncertain. You never know what's going to happen. But this is a time when your research skills are going to be put to their best use. Following stories, keeping track of things, reading the news, all of that information can go into figuring out what is happening and where your best choices might be. Every time I talk to folks about job hunting, and my first question is always, why are you interested in this job? And it is very common that I hear, well, I just need a job and this is the one that came up. It is really important. That's fine to say that to me. It's fine to say that to your friends. You need to have a different answer for your cover letter and for the people that you're interviewing with. That is always hard work, but it's work that is worth doing, because the truth is most people do want a specific job, or they are applying for a specific job because there's something about it that makes it seem tolerable or perhaps even interesting. Fake it till you make it these are words to live by, but anticipate that that question is always going to come up, and you are always going to have an answer that sounds plausible for it. Not, you know, I have applied for 78 jobs in public, private, foundation, university, special, and every other kind of library. And this is just one more of them, dude. Like, I don't care. Come up with something. If you have to, write it on a virtual piece of paper and stick it in the file with that job, so you can remember what it was that even moved you to apply for this job in the first place. It can be a category of things. I'm looking for a job in this sector, and this is, your company is well reputed. You can base it on facts, you can base it on feelings, but just have something besides I'm desperate and I must work to feed my family. That's true for everybody, and even more so now than ever before. So the importance of conveying to people that not just that you want to work, but that you do actually want to work for them, is paramount right now. All networking is going to be virtual. I'm going to expand on that in a minute. And I also, what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that the good news that we would normally share doesn't necessarily feel right to celebrate. You may get an offer that's contingent on reopening the doors. It may be an offer that is, you're going to be working from home. You're not even going to get to meet your colleagues for a while. It may be something that starts in a few months or at the next fiscal year. It might not feel right now, particularly, that the end of your job search really is the same as the end of a job search at another time. So it's good to prepare yourself emotionally for that difference right now too. But let's step back to what's different now and what we can actually do something about. This is very simple. The passive online presence is going to be more important than ever. Everybody always Googles everybody. That's the rule. Everybody lies. Everybody lies a little bit online, but everybody Googles everybody. And people are going to be more reliant than ever on that as part of their screening process. So if you don't have a passive online presence that makes you and your work discoverable, you need to make one now. That can be a personal website. It can be the portfolio page that you're making for your MLIS portfolio. It can be LinkedIn. It can be GitHub. It can be social media in some other way. It can be a combination of all of these. If you do have those things in place already, this is a great time to update it. That can feel like a constructive accomplishment on a day when there are no jobs to apply for. You can be out there and making yourself, the version of yourself that you're putting out there, look even better, look even busier, and be something that's likely to come up when somebody Googles your name or the field that you're most interested in working on. If it is up to date, add to it. Consider starting a blog. Consider linking your Twitter feed to your personal website. Post a short essay on LinkedIn about a topic that you're interested in. Maybe rework a class paper into a pithier version, or a resource list that you post on your personal site as a resource that you make freely available, and then tweet a link out to it. Be active in small ways, so that when somebody Googles you, you are controlling the narrative, and the top couple of pages of results are all things that you want somebody who's thinking about hiring you to see and that make you look good. And then your active online presence is something that you can craft during this time as well. So social media is a big one, obviously. Library Twitter is a thing, and man, she has been active lately. It is fine to have a personal account that you tweet about, or a Facebook page that you have professional and personal stuff on. I am a big believer in showing up as your whole self to things. Whether that means tattoos and piercings, or your hobbies and interests. A well-rounded person is somebody that is more likely to be a fit in somebody's culture, or it's more likely to be clear when you're not a fit in an organizational culture, and not feel like you have to hide who you are. There are lots of reasons that's not always possible for people. So if there are reasons that you want to keep a wall between your human being life and your professional persona as a subset of that, this is a really good time to be crafting that and be focused about it. I will anonymize an example here, or it's really kind of a composite character. I have been reached out to by a lot of people on Twitter and through email, and they might have an email address that is, Powerpuff Girls fan 16 at hotmail.com, or profanity word handle on Twitter. I would be a huge hypocrite if I said that you can't use profanity in the workplace. I am the prime offender on that front. However, do think about what that first impression might be. And think about, if you are going to be doing a lot of outreach, or you're going to start being visible in a professional discourse, whether that email address that made sense for you in high school is still something that makes sense for you as a newly minted professional, or as somebody who's going to be speaking on behalf of an organization as a board member. So and also, what is going to make you easy to find, and for people to know that the Ed Benoit that they find on Twitter is that Ed Benoit. So pictures of your actual face, information that distinguishes you from the other Ed Benoits out there, whether it's a middle initial or a general location. This is something that you have to balance against personal safety, and things that you may not want to disclose as part of a job search. Like, for instance, if you have a disability or a chronic illness, and you're affiliated with with interest groups for that may be something that you don't want to disclose right off the bat in a job search. So be looking at your personal online presence with an eye to that as well, to how much you want to keep back as well as how much you want to give away. So think about that. Again, this is a great place to have somebody else cast their eyes on something. Have somebody who is not you Google you and tell you what they get, and whether anything is raising any red flags. Whether a more conservative boss might be surprised to see that, or whether a hiring manager who practices a religion that has historically been in conflict with yours might express a little unconscious bias. So there's no right or wrong way to do this, but it is something to keep in mind so that you're exercising as much control as possible. There are other signifiers. Somebody noted having an AOL email address, and if you're applying for a job at Google or Yahoo, if you are doing an image search for your name, you might find things that show up that date back to a different time in your life, and it might be possible to kind of scrub some of your internet history as well. So be sure to look for image and news searches as well. Some of that you can't you can't do much about, but knowing that it's there, and that it is likely to be brought up if it is something embarrassing or disturbing, and having a good response for it, that makes you look graceful and adult, even if the pictures or news stories about you or mugshots don't make you look graceful and adult. That is a really good way to handle what you can't change. Another thing is, if you are applying for a position as, say, scholarly communications librarian or digital projects librarian, and you can't be found anywhere on the internet, that sends a message to your potential employers as well. So think about what you're putting out in the context of what they're looking for, and make it easy for them. So those are the things that are really important right now. Oh, actually, and I didn't get the last two bullets here. Committees and volunteer projects. If you have the bandwidth, if you are not working right now through no fault of your own, and have time to spare, these can, I am an advocate of working for free when it serves you, when it delivers value for you, not as a thing that you have to do to get ahead in this field. I would say that if you can take on a time-limited project or something that gets you a skill that you know you need, maybe building a database, maybe doing transcription for a cultural institution, all of these things can be skill builders and something that you can put on as professional experience. You don't have to say it's volunteer experience or unpaid experience, but professional experience, it counts. Being part of committees at a time when you can't be part of a workplace means that you have contacts and people who can speak to your work ethic, to the quality of the work that you deliver for a professional level project. Committee coworkers are people that I have actually relied on a lot for references, because they're the ones that can speak most to me, being able to do something that's not in my current job description, but that I've been doing for years as part of just my professional service. And of course, virtual meetings, hangouts, symposia like this, where you get to meet, even virtually, and broaden your professional network and just connect with folks in whatever ways you can. It is doing something. And these are habits that you can rely on well into the future. As I noted, it's not always going to be like this, but the stuff we do to get through this is stuff that we're going to be able to use to get through just about anything. So those are the tips and tricks I had prepared for you. I'm happy to answer questions, and I would love to hear what all of you have to add, because everybody in this room has had experience looking for jobs, and I'm sure that you have lessons that you've learned that could be valuable to everybody here too. So I'm going to just put up I'll have the slides are already on my website on the updates page, and I will plop that link into the chat pane for you all to bookmark and share with whoever you might want to. Thoughts, questions, comments?
Okay.
Am I totally off base?
I will share something I'm a little hesitant to share because I don't want to insult anyone, but it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. When I was interviewing for my faculty position 30 years ago in August.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I don't think there's going to be the gold watch ceremony, though.
No.
Maybe I'll get a virtual gold watch. I interviewed at UCLA, Rutgers, and LSU. And only interviewed at LSU because one of my faculty at Syracuse said, give it a shot. Mm-hmm. As I'm from upstate New York. It's like Louisiana, right? That's crocodiles, or are they?
Never.
Or
yeah.
What are they? And within the first maybe 2 hours mm-hmm. of being with the people at LSU, it was like, oh, this is lovely. Mm-hmm. These people are great. I would like to work with these people. This is a beautiful match. And that was 30 years ago. And something that I would have missed if, in fact, it was an appropriate position. They were looking for what I was looking for. I didn't think, but places can surprise you.
Yeah, that is so true. I'm so glad you shared a concrete example of that, Carol. Thank you. I had a similar question for one of my advisors when I was doing PhD coursework and was going to Elise. He kept saying like, oh, you know, these people are hiring, you should talk to them. And I was like, it's the same thing. Syracuse was his alma mater, and he was like, Syracuse, and I was like, I cannot sell my then husband on the idea of going to Syracuse. I already dragged him to Texas. Syracuse is a non-starter. I don't want to waste anyone's time is something that I've also heard as a reason why people don't apply for jobs that they're only iffy on. But here's the thing. You're not wasting anyone's time. You are giving them the advantage of being able to choose from the best and richest possible pool of candidates. So that's not wasting anyone's time. The time that you spend preparing your application is not wasting your time if it gets you to think carefully about yourself, your qualifications, and how you fit in anywhere. That's all stuff you're going to be, you know, reshaping and editing over and over. The time that you spend interviewing is time you really need to see what the place is like. And the people with whom you interview, even if things don't work out, they aren't going to stay there forever either. People move around. They might end up at the University of Hawaii or some other exotic and fabulous location that you would love to work at. And if they remember you fondly and your name comes across their desk again, that's really great social capital to be able to spend down the road. So wasting somebody's time, whether it's yours or someone else's, it's good to be considerate of that. But consider your future self as one of the people that you want to be spending their time wisely too. And that future self might be very, very happy where you end up.
Well, I'm just going to do a couple of hellos to new people that I did.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah,
Dora.
I see some new names.
Hi, Nellie. Can they not hear?
No,
Oh, they're muted, so they may not be able to say hi.
Hey, I'm cooking and eating, so I have my audio off. Hey, everyone. Hey, Dr. Becker. We haven't worked before. It's nice to see you.
It's actually just Ms. I'm ABD, so I will not take a title that I cannot rightfully claim. But thank you for the honorific. And
congratulations on your almost.
Thank you. Quitting is almost as hard as actually finishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Snowden, just because it's funny, Carol went to Syracuse.
I know.
Yes, my degrees are from Syracuse. Yes.
And I have since been there, and it's a gorgeous campus, and I can see why Phil was pushing it. It's a place where, and here's another thing that's different. I no longer have that husband, so I am free to consider places like Syracuse in a way that I wouldn't have been a long time ago.
Well, at the time I interviewed for jobs, my husband grew up in Florida. That they were actually, but they were truck farmers. They had a farm in upstate New York in the summers and in Florida in the winters. And his whole thing was, when you find some place that they have the reflector things down the middle of the road, because there aren't going to be any snow plows, that's where we're going. So he was very much behind the California or Louisiana, but not New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, though,
That wasn't serious?
well, it was, but I actually forgot I had applied to LSU.
So this is why you need to have the folder so that you can go back to it and be like, what even was that job? I have no idea. It was months ago.
Well, because I had submitted all of the application materials for 10, 11 positions.
Yeah.
That cycle in November.
Yep.
And yeah, LSU calls 2 weeks before my birthday in April. And they're like, Yeah,
So,
you go for an interview
hey.
next week. And at that point, I was actually frantically trying to figure out how I could afford to extend to not graduate for another semester, just because I didn't know what I was going to do. And yeah, I mean, it happened to work out.
That's amazing. What a beautiful story.
No.
But it wasn't like you were sitting by the phone waiting for them to call. You had said like, great, I'm gonna let it go, and then if they come up, awesome, then it might work out. But
No.
Yeah, I mean, I sent you a message earlier. I've gotten rejection letters 2 years after the fact, where it's clear like their computer just spit it out finally.
wow.
Yeah, and it's like,
One
oh
of the,
yeah.
yeah, one of the places that I applied to, and I won't tell you which one, I got the letter in the mail saying, we're so sorry. Then the next week, I see the envelope and they changed their mind. It was the exact same letter. I got it every week for like 3 months. We
Oh,
don't want you. We still don't want you. We still don't want you. We still.
That's so agonizing. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
It makes for a great story now, though.
It does, but oh my gosh, like it's like to talk about like crying over this, like, why,
I
God,
was
why?
getting ready to send letters back saying, I don't want you either. I don't want you either.
I was like, I get it.
Yeah. And Snowden,
I should
one of the
buy
other things you said that really resonated with me now that I'm, as an administrator, I've been involved in so many more job searches.
Mm-hmm.
And at the level that I'm at, everybody knows you do a thank you note. But the difference between the one that is the generic, it was a beautiful campus and flagship, and that they sent the same thing to every person they spoke with. Versus
I remain excited about the prospect of working with your august institution.
Versus the one that says, and I really appreciated the time you spent on our conversation about the future of distance education and would love to have an opportunity to discuss that. It was like, not only was there a bit more time involved, but that paying attention to who was saying what and then being able to do that, it really does make a big impression.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that where you can be, it's a place where your authenticity really pays off too, where we're engaging in the conversations and the stuff that you really geek out on with other people, and saying like, hey, I super enjoyed that conversation. Like that's my jam. As you can probably tell, I know that that part of our conversation went a little long, but it's because I'm just so excited about it, and I was so thrilled to find somebody who was excited there too. It makes me think that I'll work well with this team. That's a place where the job search can often seem really, really like that you're trying to be the person they want you to be. I think most employers would say that they want to know who they're hiring. And they want that person to be somebody who does want to work for them and who is presenting a genuine self, not merely a hireable self. The self should be genuine and hireable at the same time, ideally. And there are a ton of caveats to that, but yeah, I think that connection, it is okay to connect, and it's also okay to not connect. One of the other reasons that applying for everything is really great is that even if it's not the right fit, there might be pieces of it that you really loved, that you never thought that that was going to be important to you, but like, wow, the idea of having having a gym on campus or having a subway access to neighborhoods that are affordable, like that really makes a difference here. This isn't the right opportunity. I don't think the job is perfect, but I really do. This is something I'm going to be looking out for as a possible apples to oranges comparison for other jobs if I have other prospects that I'm looking at. So even if you don't get the job, if you loved it and loved how it felt to be there, knowing when it feels right is something that you can only get when it feels right. It's like apartment hunting. Every time I look for a new place to live, I feel like I look at a bunch of places. I'm like, this is okay, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it could do. And then I find the place. I'm like, oh, this is the place. I can't believe I ever tried to talk myself into those other places. They're so clearly not right. This is so clearly right. This is where I'm going. Being able to recognize and trust that feeling, which you'll probably have multiple times because not everybody feels the same way about you that you feel about them. But knowing when it's right and knowing when you're really excited about a job is something that you can't put a price on either. And so that, even if the job doesn't come through for you, it's not a waste of your time to be able to get that feeling and to know what it is.
Yeah. And now everyone's supposed to notice the LSU lazy river behind Dr. Benoit.
Yeah.
In response to him on campus.
Yeah, and Nellie Nelson just put a link or a plug for Ask a Manager, which is a blog I read religiously and love. And she's been Allison Green has been posting the stuff that's really relevant and timely. I am also a big fan of, and I hope I can find it real quick here. I don't have it handy, but the Professor is in Karen Kelsky's book has a chapter in it that is 100+ skills that translate outside the academy. So if you are worried about being over-specialized, being somebody who is overqualified for things or is not qualified for something that's not quite in the same field that you're prepared for, that list is so great. This is what I was talking about when I talked about cribbing from other sources, that the list of things there is a really good way to frame your skills as being applicable in other settings. So when I talk about managing teams, I talk a lot about my experience teaching in classes. When you have 30 people who are all supposed to be producing deliverables for you according to certain parameters with hitting certain mileposts, that's managing teams. I wouldn't call those people my employees, but it's in a professional setting. There's professional standards for what they're delivering. And making sure that I'm helping them do their best work, that is what a manager does. And it's also what a professor does. So those are, doing group work in class. That is soft skills galore. So talking about that and being able to frame what you do as having relevance outside the immediate setting in which you did it is incredibly important. So yeah, thanks Nellie for that suggestion, for reminding me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, making sure. For the Professor's In, she's on Facebook and she posts a lot. And she posts a lot of interesting resources. So
yeah, and she's somebody who validates what I say about being who you are. She was for a while posting Makeup Mondays. That's where I found this long wear lip gloss. So just the self you are. She has a really great chapter about interviewing if you present as non-gender conforming, and how do you navigate those tricky waters. Those are really great voices, I think, to be part of this discussion, and you'll get a lot of advice too. Like I think the more absolute people are in their advice, like never write a cover letter that's more than a page, or never do this, never do that. If that doesn't work for you, or if it doesn't seem like it's quite right, like rules are bendable and fungible, and everything is contextual. So make sure that you are getting as much advice as you can and going with what works for you, using what works for you, and not what works for everybody, because there is no such thing as something working for everybody.
Oh, I have a comment. I'm Isabel. For the ones who did meet me, I'm a 2013 graduate, and I'm working at Georgia Tech right now. And I want to emphasize Snowden's note about the thank you cards or thank you emails. I'm trying to connect with my faculty, but I have, like, in one department more than 200, so it's really hard to send an email that's even read. So a professor won some national prize, so I sent him a handwritten card that I had picked up at a garage sale.
Oh.
So, but it wasn't yellowed or anything, so I just sent it to him through campus mail, and he wrote back a nice email saying thank you for the thank you card.
Oh.
So now we're and you know, if I ever need anybody. So thank you cards when you have interviews, or thank you emails, that counts as noticing details. They always put that in all the job postings. If you notice the details and you can say something that you did in your interview, that'll really put you up in the top of the list.
Yeah.
And another thing that I wanted to say is make sure you sign your cover letter. Either like sign it, print it out, and then scan it again with your signature, or insert some sort of signature. I don't like seeing the letters without anything. It sounds like you missed the step, another detail step. So make sure you do that too.
Yeah, you can scribble with your finger on your iPhone and save that as an image file and plop the image file in as your signature in a document. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to achieve that, but I agree. I think that if you're sending an actual letter, a PDF, you can plop a signature in there. I think that's worth doing.
One thing I was going to note for all of you who've been completing the degree 100% online, use that as a strength.
Yeah.
Yes.
It requires a lot of time management, clear communication skills. There's a lot.
Technology savvy, troubleshooting.
Yep.
Working with the difficult environments.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Moodle. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, there. Even if you think it's, I'm trying not to use a term I like using in the office, involving polishing something, but even if you think it's just making something look over grandiose, it really isn't. It's highlighting your strengths.
Yep.
And if you ever get a chance to sit on a search committee, do that.
Yes.
I was on our dean's search committee, and I made a lot of connections with other people on campus, but I now know what those committees look for.
Yep.
Which has actually changed how I'm approaching certain things.
Yep.
I served on the faculty as the MLIS rep for the or the PhD student rep for the faculty search committee my first year when I was at UT, and it was eye-opening. I'm so glad I did it. You will never get a better opportunity to get different people's opinions on things like resumes. I've served on other search committees since then, and you know, I've heard things that about other people's resumes, like that my colleagues said about other people's resumes, where I was like, ooh, that's true of my resume. I need to fix that. You know, things like, oh, well, I see a lot of conference presentations here, but you know, not a lot of success translating that into peer-reviewed publications. I was like, oh, all right, yeah, got to get better about that. So the experience of being on the other side of the table can make you a lot more comfortable with being the interviewee, because if nothing else, it's liberating to know that like a lot of this stuff, like people have like crazy responses, and it may just not be about you at all.
Oh, and I want to emphasize about the online things that you have experience with. Put that I'm willing to help with any transition to the online environment, because I have a feeling we're going to be online in the fall also. I really have this dread. I talked to some humanities professors. Yes, they have humanities professors at Georgia Tech, and they were actually terrified of getting on this conferencing things to teach. So I said, I can help you set up and just rehearse with you if you want. So you can do that. And the other day, 2 days ago, another SLIS graduate, Allison Gamble, she's up in New England now. She is applying for 2 jobs right now in this economy, in this pandemic, 2 jobs, and she's going to do it over Zoom. And she had a rehearsal of a presentation. She asked different people who she was friends with, and I was one of the older friends that she had from library school. So interviews are still going on. It's just a little harder.
Yeah. Isabel, will you tell Allison hello from me?
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to underscore that, say absolutely 100%. It's a way you can sell your skills. And I would also say this is another way that surviving this, being able to say like, hey, I am flexible enough to adapt to these changing circumstances. Namely, I finished my degree during the shutdown. I rolled with those punches. That is a great way to present yourself. For me, speaking from my experience, it has been kind of astonishing to realize that what used to feel like a real negative, namely that I was a contingent employee and I worked for 7 years on a 1-year contract at UCLA, and I am now totally comfortable with that contingency. And in the archives field, where so many, like if you'd asked people 6 months ago, they would have said the biggest problem for the archives field is contingent positions. Now I'm talking to people who are interviewing for grant-funded positions that are actually feel like better prospects because they know there's at least a year of funding there because there's a grant for it. Permanent positions are the ones that are getting cut. So it's a topsy-turvy world. And if you have developed the hardiness to get through a contract job or a string of consulting jobs, if you're used to that hustle, those are skills that are going to get flexed a lot right now too.
Oh, are we on the Starship Enterprise now?
Yes. I like to transition. Speaking of transitions, there we go.
Well done.
I just want to thank Snowden for taking the time out of her schedule to talk to the students.
It was my pleasure.
And this is actually going to be something that we're going to try and do some virtual coffee hours on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Some may have a presentation. Some may just be a time to get together and check in and make sure people are staying sane, particularly with the semi-quarantine thingy. It's not a true quarantine, but a COVID-teeny. Whatever.
The Kofifi?
Not Kofefi.
I'm sorry.
So, is there, just throwing it out, does anybody want to bring up anything else, or just having any issues finishing up the semester?
Oh, that's good.